3 seconds. That's how long it took for an ordinary flight to turn into the moment that split my life in two. 1 second, I was staring at the seat back in front of me, half asleep, thinking about nothing at all. The next, there was blood on my hands, people shouting, and a grown man screaming that I had ruined his life. And the craziest part, 10 minutes earlier, I was worried about spilling coffee on my jeans. Yeah, perspective changes fast like that. Let me rewind because none of this makes sense without the before. My name is Maya Brooks. I was 19 at the time, flying from Oakland to Denver for what was supposed to be a quiet reset trip. New semester coming up, new major, new start. I'd grown up being the invisible kid, the one teachers underestimated, the one classmates talked over, the one people assumed was less capable before I ever opened my mouth. You learn to live small like that. You learn to apologize even when you've done nothing wrong. And that morning, all I wanted was to get on a plane, read my book, and land without drama. I boarded early window seat 14A. Cheap ticket, middle of the plane, nothing special. I tucked my backpack under the seat, headphones on, already half gone. Then he showed up. Tall guy, late 40s, maybe stiff posture, crisp blazer that screamed, "I complain for sport." He stopped in the aisle, checked his boarding pass twice, then looked at me like I'd personally insulted him. "You're in my row?" he asked, not even hiding the irritation. I nodded, polite smile, thinking that would be the end of it. It wasn't. He sat down hard, sighed like the universe had wronged him, and immediately started talking. Loudly. About how airlines were going downhill, how people didn't know how to act anymore, how he couldn't believe who they seated him next to. He didn't say, "My name didn't have to." I knew who he meant. You know what I mean? That tone, that look, that way people talk about you without saying you. I stayed quiet. I always did. Flight took off, seatbelt sign off, drinks came around. I ordered coffee. He ordered whiskey. At 10 in the morning. Bold choice. The flight hit some light turbulence, nothing wild, but enough that my cup sloshed and a few drops splashed onto his sleeve. Not a lot. Barely anything. I apologized, instantly reached for napkins, embarrassed, but calm. That's when his switch flipped. "What the hell is wrong with you?" he snapped, voice sharp enough to cut through the cabin noise. People turned. He stood up halfway, waving his arm like it was drenched. "Do you have any idea how much this jacket costs?" I tried to speak, tried to explain. It was turbulence that I was sorry, but he talked over me louder, angrier. Called me careless, called me irresponsible. Said people like me shouldn't be allowed to fly. Flight attendant stepped in calm but firm, asked him to lower his voice. He laughed. Literally laughed. "I'm the one who got soaked," he said. "She's the problem." I could feel my chest tightening, that familiar mix of shame and anger swirling together. I wanted to disappear into the seat. For the next hour, he made it his mission to make me uncomfortable. Elbow pressed into my side. Legs spread wide. Comments under his breath just loud enough for me to hear. When I got up to use the restroom, he didn't move right away. Just looked at me and said, "You can wait." When he finally shifted, he stuck his foot out. I tripped, caught myself on the seat in front of me. A couple people gasped. He shrugged. "Clumsy," he said. In the bathroom, I stared at myself in the mirror, hands shaking. I told myself to get through it. Just land. Just survive the flight. When I got back to my seat, my backpack was open. Stuff everywhere. Notebook flipped through. Wallet out. A photo of my mom and little sister bent in half. My throat closed up. I asked him if he touched my things. He smiled like I'd just told a joke. "Don't flatter yourself," he said. "Nobody wants your junk." Something inside me cracked then. Not exploded. Cracked. Quietly. Because it wasn't just rude anymore, it was intentional. Personal. He knew exactly what he was doing, and he knew he could get away with it. The final straw came when his phone rang. He answered on speaker, bragging, laughing. Telling whoever was on the other end about the girl next to him who didn't belong here anyway. He said I was probably a charity case. Said standards were slipping. Someone behind us told him to keep it down. He told them to mind their business. I don't know what possessed me, but I spoke. My voice was shaking, but I spoke. I asked him why. Why he was doing this. Why he hated me when I hadn't done anything to him. He leaned in, close breath, heavy with alcohol, and said, "Because people like you need to know your place." That's when the cabin went quiet. You could feel it. That heavy silence before something breaks. I told him I paid for my seat. I told him I had every right to be there. I told him he didn't get to decide my worth. He laughed, stood up, fully towering over me. "You think you're equal," he said. "That's adorable." He shoved me. I hit the armrest hard, pain shooting through my side. Someone yelled. The flight attendant rushed over, and then before anyone could stop him, he punched me. Square in the face. The sound was dull and awful, like knocking on a door that shouldn't exist. My head snapped back. I tasted blood instantly. Chaos exploded. People screamed. Someone grabbed him from behind. Another passenger tackled him into the aisle. I slid down in my seat, hands to my face, blood pouring through my fingers, shock buzzing through my body. I remember thinking, this can't be real. This doesn't happen on planes. This happens on the news. The captain came onto the intercom, voice tight, announcing an emergency landing. Medics, police. I was shaking so hard I couldn't stop. The flight attendant knelt in front of me, pressing gauze to my face, telling me to breathe. I couldn't feel my nose. Everything hurt, and nothing did at the same time. When we landed, officers boarded fast. They cuffed him while he shouted about his rights, about being provoked, about suing everyone in sight. Other passengers spoke up, said they'd seen everything, said he'd been harassing me from the start. Someone handed over a video. Someone else mentioned he'd done this before on another flight to another girl. I was taken off on a stretcher. Bright lights, cold air, questions I barely understood. At the hospital, they confirmed my nose was broken. Bruises blooming across my face. I kept asking if I was in trouble. The detective held my hand and said, "No, honey. You did nothing wrong." I cried then, harder than I had on the plane. The investigation uncovered more than anyone expected. Turns out he had a history. Complaints buried. Incidents ignored. People dismissed. Because he was loud. Because he had money. Because systems protect people like him until they can't anymore. This time, there were witnesses. Videos. No spinning it away. The case went to court. I testified. It was terrifying. He stared at me like I was still beneath him. His lawyer tried to make it sound like I provoked him by existing too confidently. I answered every question calmly. I told the truth. That's all I had. And it was enough. He was found guilty. Assault, disorderly conduct, federal charges, sentenced, banned from flying. When the verdict was read, I didn't feel victorious. I felt tired, relieved, sad for the version of me that boarded that plane thinking the world would leave her alone if she stayed quiet. Recovery wasn't instant. I flinched in crowds. Planes made my heart race. Therapy helped. Time helped. But what changed the most was this. I stopped shrinking. I stopped apologizing for taking up space. I realized that staying quiet doesn't keep you safe, it just makes you invisible to the people who should protect you. I went back to school, changed my major to criminal justice, started volunteering with a group that supports victims of public assaults. I still fly. I still choose the window seat. And every time I buckle in, I remind myself that I belong wherever my feet are planted. So here's my question to you. If you were on that flight, what would you have done? Would you have spoken up sooner? Would you have filmed? Would you have stayed silent and told yourself it wasn't your problem? And if you've ever been underestimated, dismissed, or targeted for simply existing, how did you handle it? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear them. Debate it. Argue if you need to. And if this story made you uncomfortable, good. Discomfort is where change starts. Like the video if you believe nobody deserves to be treated like less. Subscribe if you want more real stories about real people pushing back. And share this with someone who needs to hear that they're not weak for surviving and they're not wrong for fighting back.